You were supposed to sing us in. You're supposed to sing us a song.
Music is not working right now.
Yeah.
Was I supposed to sing Spinal Tap?
You can just keep reciting the lines because that's what I've been. I don't need to watch the movie now because between you and Katie, I think I've got it.
Yes, I'm just going through all the lines.
The CD player's not working right now, and it just was.
It just was, yeah, because we played Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Well, we'll sing some Barry Manilow. Denise will sing us some Barry Manilow. Yeah, Lola. So yeah,
No.
I couldn't believe we couldn't come up with that.
I know, but see now, can you name another one?
No, because I don't sit around and listen to Barry Manilow.
There's got to be something I know. Why didn't I Google this yet?
It was a big story yesterday though, because I think he's because it was that thing I was talking about with the they're blasting his music with the to keep the panhandlers away at that joint. So anyway, hey, we'll get the music fixed.
We'll get that issue fixed.
We need Mandy.
Of course. So yeah,
that one.
All your greatest hits. Hey, Tim Jones in for Mark Cox. It's the Mark Cox Morning Show. Welcome to FM News Talk 97. Welcome to Friday. We'll help you roll into your weekend. Big week this week from the Supreme Court. Probably, seriously, one of the biggest weeks for this Supreme Court in my generation that I can think of. Because it wasn't just one major case. It was like 5 of them. Most of them went the way I thought they would. The one that threw me was the one, the Wayfair versus South Dakota case, the sales taxation case that says, yes, states can go ahead and collect tax for whatever they want. Out-of-state purchases, in-state, it doesn't matter. And a lot of folks on the conservative taxation reform side of the thing said, oh, that's wonderful. So now states can just tax wherever they want, even if somebody has no connection whatsoever to their state. So the case that wrapped up the term, and you wonder if the court does this on purpose, because on the final day of this term, they issued the final decision, which was one that everybody had been waiting for 6 months or more, a case that was years in the making, because we had talked about yesterday how the case had the issue of the case had started with Rebecca Friedrichs, a teacher out of California. That case locked up in a 4-4 tie due to the untimely death of Justice Scalia. The case basically came back under a new plaintiff, none other than Mark Janus, who we interviewed yesterday. And he took the case all the way back up the Supreme Court. Same issue, whether or not government, public employees should be required, should be forced to have wages taken out of their paychecks to support whatever causes the union bosses want to. So now, to further discuss that case and break it down for us is Mailee Smith from the Illinois Policy Institute. She's one of the staff attorneys over there. You can look up everything about IPI at illinoispolicy.org. And Mailee, is it Mailee? Is it Mailee? Mailee. It's Mailee. Gotcha.
Right.
Like Miley Cyrus.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Oh, yeah. I had it first, though. It was my name first.
Good. I'm glad. Well, Mailee, we actually interviewed Mark Janus yesterday, and what an articulate guy who's not an attorney, who understands so much, not only about the legal aspects, but what the case means. He always says, look, it's not about me. This is about every worker, every government worker, every employee who works for government across the country. And I just thought he's a remarkable man with a remarkable story.
He is fantastic. And he's right. This was about fairness. It was about First Amendment freedoms. People shouldn't be forced to give up their rights just because they choose to be public servants. And you can see that coming through in Mark Janus. He's a servant, and he was a fantastic plaintiff, and we are so excited for him.
Mailee, in a nutshell, give us because since you are an attorney, I actually am an attorney by trade as well. So we'll try not to get too legal on everybody. But could you give us the nutshell legal case about why this was a case? What was the law we're talking about? Why this was a case, and what did the Supreme Court rule?
Sure. So this case was actually seeking to overturn a prior Supreme Court decision, which was called Abood versus Detroit Board of Education. That was from 1977, and in that case, the court said that unions and government entities could contract or could require public servants or government workers to pay fees to a union, even if they are not members. So what that meant was that for the last 40 years, workers like Mark Janus have had to make a decision, either pay fees to the union or lose your job. And that is patently unfair, and it violates the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, and that is what Mark was arguing, and that is where this case came from, challenging that previous court decision.
So, Mailee, one of the things I want to throw at you some of the counter arguments I'm hearing here. So, first of all, you mentioned that this overturned a prior decision. So, I'm hearing a lot of folks who love government unions and are standing up for the government union bosses are saying, well, this is an activist court. They are overturning 50 years of precedents that the Abood case set. So, these people say they're conservatives and they're just interpreting the law, but this is an activist court that's making a new ruling, and they're punishing government unions, and that's not fair. And because it was this well-established precedent, what say you to that argument?
Well, I would say it doesn't matter how old the precedent is. If it's wrong, it needs to be overturned. And that was, in a nutshell, I guess, what Alito was saying in his majority opinion. They got it wrong in Abood, and they know that now. One of the things he pointed out was that, the facts and circumstances that they assumed in Abood never came about. For example, they assumed that this type of fee would help quell labor strife, and what Alito pointed to was the fact that there are no forced fees in the federal government unions or in the post office union. And we don't see, postal workers on strike all the time, or we don't see any type of, labor strife in that environment. So they were wrong, he said. And he also talked about how the First Amendment, it doesn't matter how long the precedent has been in place. If it's violating someone's freedom of speech, that is going to trump.
Mailee, that's an interesting fact that I don't think if I knew it, I didn't really fully comprehend it, that the federal government workers do not have forced fee policies in their contracts.
Right. And those government workers, those federal government workers who are covered by federal government worker unions, do not have to pay these so-called fair share fees or agency fees if they are not a member.
That's really remarkable, because you would think that if the federal government could take more money from somebody under any guise whatsoever, they would do it, right? So I think that's a notable distinction, that those on the opposite side of this, they usually want to point to federal control because they want the federal government to run everything. Well, in this situation, we could say not even in this situation does the federal government. The states are more coercive than the federal government on this issue, which is just wrong.
Sure, exactly. That's right, and it's coercion in the fact that they allow the unions. So the government itself isn't getting that money,
right?
But it's allowing the unions to get that money.
And the other argument I hear, Mailee, is this is just weakening workers' rights. They always guise it they always say the worker, but really. They're talking about, government bosses, those who run the unions, those in the power structure of the unions. Right. So they always say, this is harming the worker, but this is not anti-union, right? I mean, people can still join the union if they want. This really is reestablishing everyone's First Amendment rights. This is a First Amendment story, right?
That is exactly right. This is about freedom of speech. So it isn't about harming any type of worker rights. This is about restoring their rights. And that should come first. It's about restoring that balance. You're right. The union leaders have had far too much power. So not only do they have power over the taxpayers in Illinois, they've also had power over the workers that they say that they're representing. What is not well known is that if you are a member of a union, you don't really have a say in where your union dues go. You might at a very local level, your local affiliate, but your dues are passed on to the state level and the national level, and you don't have a say in what happens. And what we see at those levels is that unions like AFSME or National Education Association, they frequently spend more on politics than they do on representing workers, which is supposed to be what they're doing. And so, this really, it's not about, going after the unions. This is about restoring balance and making sure that these workers have their First Amendment rights honored.
Mailee, one last question for you. What's next? This was an earthquake in the government union world, and so what happens next to this issue?
So what the court indicated is that these workers should have to opt in to the union membership and those fees. We don't expect employers to necessarily stop taking those fees right away because this is such a big decision. So what we are encouraging workers to do is to go ahead and tell their union, hey, I'm opting out. Tell their employer, stop taking my fees out. And that would help ensure that they see a more immediate effect from this.
Fantastic. Hey, Mailee, thanks so much for all the time. Thanks for helping us break down a complicated, emotional topic so people can understand it. And, folks, you can go to illinoispolicy.org to find out everything you need to know about this entire issue, this entire story, where it came from and where it's going, illinoispolicy.org. Mailee Smith, thanks so much for joining us this morning, and we appreciate the information. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, there we go. We're going to talk more Janus throughout